Welcome to Philosophy and Critical Thinking, the basics. In our last video, we talked about inference to the best explanation. In this video, we're going to talk about correlation and causation. A correlation is when things share a relationship with one another. They can sometimes be just two things, or they can be more than two things. So when you hear someone say, this is correlated with that, we're saying that they're sharing a relationship. One way a correlation can exist is in a positive way, a positive correlation. Take a look at this graph here. The blue line represents how much chocolate a person has consumed, and the orange line represents how nauseous they feel, their degree of nausea. Now, as you'll see, as the rate of chocolate consumption decreases, the nausea also decreases, and whenever the chocolate consumption increases, the nausea also increases. So when you have two things that decrease whenever the other decreases and increases whenever the other increases, this is known as a positive correlation. Now, a correlation can also be negative, a negative correlation. Take a look at this graph here. The blue line represents how much exercise somebody does, and the orange line represents what degree of heart disease, or whether they have heart disease. What you'll see here is whenever the exercise increases, the degree of heart disease decreases. And whenever the degree of exercise decreases, the heart disease increases. So when you have two things where one decreases, the other increases, and when the other thing increases, the other decreases, this is known as a negative correlation. Now, looking at the previous two graphs and looking at their correlations, we could be tempted to say that that increasing your exercise prevents heart disease, and that a lack of exercise increases your chance of having heart disease. And with the previous one, that consuming extra chocolate causes you to be nauseous. But let's take a look at this graph here. The blue line represents ice cream sales, and the orange line represents shark attacks. What you'll see here is when the ice cream sales increase, the shark attacks also increase, and when the ice cream sales decrease, the shark attacks also decrease. So if we wanted to stay consistent, and we're looking at correlations alone, we'd have to say either ice cream sales cause shark attacks, or shark attacks cause ice cream sales. And this seems quite crazy, and rightly so. So we've got to be careful not to say that a correlation is necessarily a causation. The term is used, correlation does not entail causation. So this is a principle that we've got to stick to. So just to remember, when you're looking at correlations, we cannot jump to the conclusion that there is a causation. So what can we say about a correlation? Walter St. Armstrong and Robert Fogelin, in their Understanding Arguments book, have put forward 4 possibilities, which are quite helpful here. When there is a correlation, something would have had to have caused it. Something's got to have caused it. And these are the 4 possibilities. One is that one of the things caused the other. So we can put this in a kind of a logical form of A caused B. So the first thing caused the second thing. The second possibility is the reverse. The second thing caused the first thing. So B caused A. So those are 2 possibilities. But there's another possibility that something, or some things, it doesn't necessarily need to be one thing, caused both the two things to correlate with each other. So something else caused both A and B. And the fourth possibility is it was just a coincidence. It was just a complete accident. It turned out that way. It was a fluke. So there's the four possibilities. Sometimes we can use our imagination and use some principles similar to the inference to the best explanation that we covered in our previous tutorial to try either rule some of these out or render them more improbable to come to a stronger conclusion or more probable conclusion that one of these things is the cause of the correlation. Let's rethink back to the graph with shark attacks and ice cream sales. Now, we've got the correlation that every time shark attacks goes up, ice cream sales go up, and then when they drop, they both drop together. So when we have a think about how likely is it that the ice cream sales are causing shark attacks? As far as I'm aware, I don't think eating a heap load of ice cream before going for a swim makes a shark more likely to want to eat you. And shark attacks causing ice cream sales, I don't think anyone who has experienced a shark attack felt like eating some ice cream straight after. What about something else causing both A and B? Well, when we think about it, when someone more likely to be attacked by a shark is when they're swimming at the beach. And when we think, when is someone more likely to eat ice cream as opposed to other desserts or consume ice cream more often, is in the summertime. And when we go to the beach, we typically go to the beach more often in the summertime. So there's something else that could have caused both the increase in shark attacks and the increase in ice cream, and the decrease in ice cream and the decrease in shark attacks, is the fact that both occur more often in the summer and both occur less in the winter. So this sounds to me to be quite a good candidate for the causation of the correlation. Coincidence and accident is always possible, no matter what the correlation. But then, if you've got a strong correlation, then the size of the data you've collected and the power of the correlation goes up and down like this one over a long period of time, it becomes less and less likely that coincidence or accident is the best explanation there. So that's how we can treat that one. And when you go back to the other graphs, take for instance the chocolate and the nausea, you can see that they go up and down together, thinking about, well, would nausea cause you to increase your chocolate consumption? I'd say probably not. Could there be something else causing them both? There could be something possible. For instance, maybe the chocolate they were using in the study might have been off or out of date, or something like that. But that's possible. But you can make a decision on whether that's likely or not. Once again, coincidence and accident, maybe not. So there could be a good candidate here for that. The increase in chocolate consumption was increasing the nausea, and you can back this up by putting forward a mechanism, and the mechanism could be that when you eat something, especially sweets, and you eat too much of them, eat them in excess, you'll start to feel nauseous. So sometimes you can throw in a mechanism to help push the argument for the causal relationship. Now, the main point to be driven here, though, is that a lot of the times correlation is not going to be enough. You're going to need to do extra study. In science, they'll do things which are called control studies and double-blind control studies and those kind of things. And that's normally what you'll have to do. Very rarely you want to rely on correlation alone. But sometimes that's not going to be always the case. Sometimes there's certain studies that you need to get that harder causation, might run into ethical or practical issues, and sometimes we need to consider the possible causes of a correlation by ruling them out by considering which is more probable than the other. If you want more information, you can go onto the website www.philosophycriticalthinking.com, and you can purchase the books What is This Thing Called Science by A.F. Chalmers and Understanding Arguments by Walter St. Armstrong and Robert Fogelin, which will be in the description below, and you can click onto them if you want to purchase those. In our next video, we're going to be moving into concepts in philosophy, very popular concepts in philosophy now. We're covering most of the basics. We're going to start to get into certain positions different philosophers hold regarding ethics. And the first one we're going to be covering is utilitarianism. If you want to stick in tune for that, please subscribe and click the bell. Thanks.